Hi, it's Emily Leiphart of Art from the Heart, and I'm thrilled to be one of Taheerah's guests for her second annual Advent Calendar Extravaganza. There are over 100 special guests and 25 sponsored prizes over 25 days, so be sure to visit the link below for all of the details as well as links to Taheerah's blog. Today's sponsor is Paper Smooches, and it's my honor to be creating with Paper Smooches for this fun event. I'll be using the baby from Pip Squeaks as well as the Santa hat from Merry Motifs. I want to create a custom holiday card for a friend with twin boys, so I'm going to mirror stamp or reverse stamp the baby and the Santa hat. To do that, I'm going to use one of the solid stamps from the Mirror Block stamp set. First, I'm going to stamp the original images, and since I'll be using Copic markers to color them, I'm stamping with Memento Tuxedo black dye ink. The next piece of cardstock is for the mirror or reverse stamped baby. But to prepare for mirror stamping, I will remove the black foam insert from the misti. I place a piece of acetate and put the stamp down on that, with the stamping edge facing up instead of down. The mirror block will be stuck to the lid so that it's face to face with the baby. That way, when the baby is inked up, the mirror image is imprinted onto the mirror block. I'm going to ink up the baby several times to load it up with as much ink as possible when it makes its impression onto the mirror block. I do this a couple of times and transfer the image onto the mirror block. Then I remove the acetate with the baby stamp and replace the foam pad with a new sheet of cardstock. I close the lid and stamp the mirror image onto that piece of cardstock. After several tries, I found that if I hold the ink down on the cardstock for a few seconds, it makes a better impression. When I peel the cardstock off the mirror block, I make sure to do it very slowly. This also helps maintain a more crisp image. I'm going to set this aside and stamp the mirror image of the Santa hat. I use the exact same process, but since the image is small and has fewer lines, it's much easier to get a great impression compared to the baby. Copic makes multi-liners of different thicknesses, and the 0.5 pen matches the lines of the Paper Smooches images. I use that to fill in the spots where the mirror stamping wasn't perfect. This step isn't always necessary, but sometimes I feel that it's important to have very defined lines. I didn't fill in all of the lines here though. It really depends how I'm feeling because sometimes my hands feel a bit shaky and I don't want to risk ruining the image. I use very basic colors to color in the 4 images. I've sped up this process 20 times. I use 2 shades for the skin, 3 greens to make the safety pin on the diaper festive, 3 shades of neutral gray for the diaper and fuzzy parts on the Santa hat, plus 3 shades of red on the hat. When all of the coloring is done, I can start die cutting. The original stamping of the baby and Santa hat are straightforward. I just hold the dies in place with removable tape and run them through my Big Shot. I've cut away the excess cardstock from the mirror stamped images. Now I'm going to reverse die cut these. Since they're in the reverse position, I have to place the die cuts on the back side of these images. I kept the tape on the dies after the first run. What I need to do is hold these up to a strong light so you can see through the cardstock, and I'm going to use one of my lights for this. You can see exactly where the die is, and when it's in place, I press down on the tape that's already there to secure it. Then I'll do the same with the Santa hat. Now these mirror stamped images are ready for die cutting. The only other thing I need is some wax paper or parchment paper. Based on my experience, I've found that 4 layers work best, but depending on the brand and thickness, the results will vary. The reason for the parchment paper is to protect the cardstock from the etched lines in the cutting plate. Normally, it would be the back of your image that lies against that plate, but since this is a reversed image, it will be going face down on it. I place the parchment paper down on the cutting plate, then place the image face down, and the die will cut into the parchment, which will protect the image from being etched by the plate. I had prepared 2 pieces of parchment, one for each image, but they both ended up fitting on one, so I'll save the other piece for my next mirrored image project. I used tweezers to lift off the parchment, and now my reverse die cut image is revealed and nicely cut. What I also like to do with these reverse die cut images is take a bone folder with a smooth edge and smooth the sharp edges. Normally the die cuts curl down, but these ones curl up, so I just want to soften those lines. That way, those mirror images and die cuts look exactly like the originals. I've prepared a craft card base, and I'll be using the Hotspots large base die to create a white frame for the front panel. Next, I'm going to sponge the edges of the card base using walnut stain distress ink. This gives the card a warm, cozy feel. Now I'm going to prepare the panel for stamping. I place the card base and the frame in the misti to help me gauge positioning. I will also place the babies with their Santa hats in the frame, but I'm going to adhere the hats with glue dots so I have fewer pieces to move around. I'm going to combine two sentiments, Merry Christmas from Merry Motifs and Congrats to Your Super Cute Family from Pip Squeaks. I will have to mask off Congrats to create a whole new sentiment that says, Merry Christmas to Your Super Cute Family. I stamp the original sentiment on a piece of masking paper and then cut it apart so the word Congrats is by itself. Then I place the masks into the frame where I eventually want to stamp the words. I make sure that all of the images and the sentiments are where I want them to be, and then I place the original sentiment right over top of the mask. I close the lid to pick up the stamp and remove the bottom part of the mask so that the inked words can stamp directly onto the card base, and the word Congrats will go on the masking paper instead, leaving a blank space for the Merry Christmas stamp. Looking at the final card with all of the pieces in place makes me think that the babies need an anchor. I decide to stamp a hill using the clothesline from Pip Squeaks, and that really pulls all of the stamped elements together. Again, I feel that even the white frame needs warmth, so I sponge around it with vintage photo distress ink. Now I can finally assemble the card. I'm going to pop up the frame and babies with foam tape. To balance out the red at the top of the card, I add some enamel hearts around the sentiment, and now my card is done. Please refer to the supply links below if you're interested in any of the products I used in this video. You can also visit my blog for stills and more information about my card. Thanks so much for watching.